My mom and dad divorced when I was 2.5 years old. Apparently, it wasn't a huge dramatic breakup or a huge saucy story about cheating. After 7 years of a relationship, 4 of those being marriage, she turned to my dad, eyes wide but empty. I made a mistake. They had been sitting on the porch, the summer night still and cool but noisy around them. All he did was turn away and nod quietly. The divorce went smoothly. She didn't want the house, his money, or even me. She wanted her stuff, her dog, and her car. A month after my 3rd birthday, she packed up her things in her car, kissed me on the forehead, nodded at my father, and drove away. We both never saw or heard from her again. Well, actually, I think I passed by her at a train station one time. But anyway. I didn't start asking questions about her until I was around 6 years old. Every time I did, however, no matter what kind of question it was, I got the same answer. A flex of his eyebrows and a shrug, staring at me until I recognized that was his answer. Dad was a pharmacist, a handsome man who spoke in mumbles. My gym teacher said he always did that, like he didn't trust anyone else with his thoughts. As a father, he was stern but fair. He would never punish me until I fully understood why I was being punished. And his punishments always fit the rule that was broken. He was strict with them too, no laying off me or breaks being given. I was always supposed to do my chores and my homework without being asked, but he carried his own weight around the house too. He also made sure that I had plenty of time for myself. I think his favorite part of raising me was when I asked questions or asked for advice. His eyes would light up, mustache curling into a smile. I would see the same reaction at his job too. I think he liked figuring out ways to make things simpler for people. Perhaps he felt it was his calling to the world. Despite our easy living together, as I grew up and started to understand society and its roles and expectations, our house filled with a palpable tension. It was mostly from me. He was as patient and as steady as ever, an immovable object in the nonsense of reality. Tiny arguments that didn't make sense were starting to become a daily habit, usually due to me taking something he said to the extremes or finding his commands annoying. Passive-aggressive comments, door slams, groans, and eye rolls became common slang in my dictionary while conversing with him. He never reacted, mainly because my grades were still good and my chores were done, so he thought he had no reason to punish me for speaking my mind. He told me later that he summed up my behavior as puberty and didn't take it personally. About a month before my 15th birthday, the ticking time bomb that was lurking between us finally blew up. It was Valentine's Day, and my head was swarming with a lot of thoughts from talking to my friends all day. Some who had their parents, some who had one, whether from divorce or from death. Nonetheless, I started to become envious of each and every one of them. Even if it was just in the faintest of ways, they understood their relationship between their parents. I knew nothing. Why was my mom some shameful secret to my dad? Did any of those feelings drip down towards me? I came home, head dizzy and hot, heart heavy. "Hey, Possum," Dad said, glancing at the door from his laptop, using a nickname I earned from a childhood love of knocking over the kitchen trash bin. "Got you some candy. It's upstairs on your desk. Happy Valentine's Day." He looked me in the face and gave me a quick, sweet smile. I didn't return it, leering daggers at him. "Why do you hate Mom?" For the first time in my life, and I think the last time, I saw his eyes darken. "What the hell kind of question is that?" I was surprised, expecting his usual silent response. However, his words just added fuel to my fire. "I know how couples act, Dad. People who miss their loved ones talk about it. You act like she's the biggest stain on your life, like your biggest mistake, and that you're way better and above her now. You won't even move on and get another woman because you're so stuck up your own ass that if you can't have her, you don't want anybody else, that you're just expecting her to come crawling back to you. He stood up, and, also for the first and last time, raising his voice at me. And who the hell are you to tell me anything about this situation? You know absolutely nothing about the subject. Well, no wonder I don't. You don't ever talk about it. It's none of your business what went on between us. It's my business because she's my mother, and you barely know her. I doubt you even remember her. Why do you think it's okay for me to be hurting from all of this? And don't you think I'm hurting at all? His final bellow shook me, first from his tone, then from his words. We stared at each other for a few seconds, both of us embarrassed about our actions. We both took a seat on either end of the couch, avoiding eye contact, processing the situation. My mind was reeling from his words, from some feeling that I would not understand until much later in life, and the crawling fear of my looming punishment. I've never screamed at my father before. From the media and from my friends' accounts, that seemed like something that would instantly get you punished. I jumped when he finally spoke up. Get in the car. His voice was unsure, shaky, soft. I followed his command, the tension that loomed between us and in the house now morphing into slimy awkwardness. The car ride was silent. I didn't turn on the radio, nor was he even doing his usual mumbling. I even tried to keep my shifting and swallowing and breathing as quiet as possible. He pulled up to the diner that I always claimed smelled like too much ketchup, and silently walked inside. I followed his lead, both of us getting a table and sitting down across from each other, avoiding eye contact. The waitress walked over, smiling, refusing to read the mood. Beer for me. Cherry cola for you, Possum? I nodded, staring at my lap. We were silent as the drinks arrived. Eventually he ordered us pies. Coconut cream for him, cherry for me. After a few sips of drink and a few bites of pie, he wiped some crumbs off his mustache, clearing his throat. It's like I always tell you, Possum, you should never have a serious discussion with an empty stomach. I didn't react or look up. He sighed, tapping his fork on his plate. Look, I've been selfish. Very selfish. I finally looked up, not expecting him to have started the conversation that way. He then slowly started telling me the story of the day Mom decided to leave, which, honestly, left me with more questions than answers. But that wasn't his fault. I love your mother. I've always loved her. Which is why when she told me she had to go, I assumed it was for a good reason. He paused to use his napkin to wipe some cream off his face. A lot of people don't understand this, saying she left me for another man and that I should have tried to convince her to stay. Even if she did go for another gentleman, great. I want her happy. All I want is her happiness. He took his last spoonful of pie. I didn't want you to hate her. I didn't want you to judge me the same way everyone else has. I didn't want to admit I was hurt way more by her actions than I'd like to admit. I came to all these conclusions without thinking about how you would feel, and I am not only ashamed, but I am honestly sorry. I would never blame you for not forgiving me, but I'm still going to ask if you can. I stared at him, playing with the straw in my mouth, not sure how to handle being put in this situation. My dad stared at me with heartbroken eyes, with so much guilt. I suddenly felt bad for not noticing how much pain he has been in this whole time. After a moment of silence, I decided what my answer was going to be. Caleb got detention for yelling fuck in the parking lot today. He blinked, taken aback by the statement. He seemed to chew on it before he slowly nodded, smiling softly and taking a deep breath. I hope it was worth it at least. He saw the grade for his stats test online. He laughed. He laughed way harder than he should have at some teenager being stressed by academic failure, but it was clear there was years of pain and guilt melting away inside. After that day, everything between us was back to normal, with a lot less tension. We talked several times about that day and the events that led up to it, but we never spoke about Mom again. With his guidance, I got a full-ride scholarship and he drove with me across the country to help set up my dorm. I visited every year for the holidays, always happy to come home to some place familiar. When I was 26 years old, he said to the pharmacy staff that he was tired, so he wanted to head home early and rest. He died in his sleep during the night. They aren't sure why he went. He was a relatively healthy man who didn't smoke, only 48 years old. Almost half the town went to his funeral, as did I. He was born, raised, and died in that small Montana town. I wasn't sad. He would have been real mad at me if he learned I was sad. He had a good life, and I had a good life with him. He left with both of us knowing we were comfortable with our relationship. I visit him on his birthday, leaving him flowers, knowing it annoys the fuck out of him spending money on such a useless gesture. Is it so useless if I get to tease him in the afterlife, though? I sometimes think about that day, and only about 2 years ago did I finally realize what that overwhelming unknown feeling was. No one ever talks about it, but it's something every child experiences with their parent. The day they transform from omnipotent, all-knowing sage into the same sweaty, awkward, stressed human being you are. My dad was wrong. His sin wasn't being selfish. He had a much darker sin, a sin that every parent on the planet carries with them no matter how much they try to scrub it away. The sin of being a human being with emotions, wants, needs, and ambitions. Honestly, there will never be a perfect child in this world until we learn how to cut that shit out. Until then, the cycle continues. February 26, 2036, 5:43 p.m. I'm filling out Helen Warren's paperwork. The body is being released to her parents tomorrow. Cause of death was a fatal gunshot wound to the head. This is a very slow start to coming back to work after being gone for a few days. Especially after my discovery. Honestly, I feel bad for this poor girl. All I'm thinking about is that gentleman. What happened after I discovered the knife happened so quickly and was so panicked. I sent the last member of my team who was on shift to go get someone, and he managed to get in contact with Captain Ritter. I waited anxiously for his arrival, pacing in the lobby until he arrived, eyes bloodshot and wary. He had clearly had a long day. He summoned all of his patience before looking at me, clearly annoyed, but trying to be as understanding and considerate as possible. I haven't seen him face to face in a while, his hazy eyes and strikingly thin eyebrows looking me over. He was probably thinking the same thing. In my waiting time, I managed to calm down enough to make a more rational explanation of the situation than what I barked at my poor understudy. I explained Amelia's notes and my observations, and why it was very improbable for this situation. Knife in the heart with no point of entry, he mused, staring down at the open body. You could have just said that. I felt my face get hot, and he chuckled softly. It's fine. I would be flabbergasted if I was alone around dead bodies and then saw this. I wanted to argue with him about how the dead bodies were never a problem at all, but decided that wasn't the point of this conversation. Listen. He rubbed his eyes and his nose. Let's lock the poor guy up for now. It's late, and we will all look at him with a fresh pair of eyes tomorrow. Sound good? I was about to object, but then looked around at the dark examination room. It was just the two of us, and I know only a few night crew of the task force was upstairs. Most of them didn't like to help me with anything at all. I nodded slowly, starting to clean everything up. He waited for me outside in the lobby and walked me to my car, giving me a small nod. Get some rest. I'll contact Amelia in the morning. I gave him a tired smile, suddenly grateful for his direction. However, by the time I got home, I found I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were too heavy, glitchy, curious. How? Why? When? What will Amelia think? I don't know how long I was staring at the ceiling until my alarm finally buzzed. Just when I was thinking of which place to get my breakfast from, putting my eyeliner on, I heard my phone ring. It was Redder. Hello, sir. Everything all right? Listen. I heard him sigh deeply. I want you at your sharpest when you look at this case again. Why don't you take the next 3 days off? I heard my heartbeat blaring in my ears. I couldn't believe it. Was he insane? But, sir, there could be important evidence. All of that is being taken care of. I don't want to see you until Tuesday, normal scheduled time. Take care of yourself. Then the phone mutely beeped in my ear. I threw it against the couch as punishment for its discretions. Why was I almost ready to cry? I eventually crawled back over to the couch, curling up in the blankets, the lack of over 30 hours of sleep suddenly catching up to me. I slept uneasily, my ears aching and eyes tight together. Here's a side note about me. I'm one of those people who dream really ridiculously, like having dreams that make no sense, like having dinosaurs dressed in butler's outfits trying to serve me sirloin. Kind of nonsense. So this one sticks out to me. The very first thing I remember was I was existing. I couldn't do anything, though. Hear, see, taste, speak. Nothing. I was very barely thinking. It almost hurt to think. The only thought that came to me painlessly and easily was that I was here, and I was cold. Not a single spot on me wasn't cold. Slowly, thinking started to become easier. Basic concepts, math, biology, eating, living. All of those thoughts poured into my head like the thickest of paints. That's when the thought of realizing I was in liquid revealed itself to me. That, and I had something bumpy all over me. Hearing came shortly after, confirming my idea of being in liquid. I slowly moved my body, finding the movement fascinating and letting questions bounce around in my brain like getting a brand new toy. Emotions slowly soared over me and blossomed into joy and curiosity. And then, suddenly pain. Red, hot, searing pain on both of my arms. An intense amount of heat and pressure breaking the soothing cold water. I learned how to scream, but no sound came out. I learned about fear, but I had no place to hide. Someone please help me? I woke up with a jolt, covered in sweat, hearing banging on my door. With difficulty, I stood up and threw a robe on, before peeking outside. Amelia, with her dangerous eyes and waiting smile, raised her eyebrows at me before frowning. Y'all okay? I waved her inside, glancing at the mirror in the bathroom as I did. I was bug-eyed and slightly green in the face. It's hot, I excused, in which she glanced back at me unamused. She glanced around my apartment before she started picking up garbage. Heard Chase grounded you too, huh? Don't say it like that, it makes it more demeaning. Her words suddenly hit me. Wait, you got sent home too? Yeah, I looked at the body this morning, told him the test that I thought that needed to happen, and he told me to go home until Wednesday. She shrugged, then stared as I gritted my teeth. What the hell is going on? She ignored my outburst, tying up a trash bag. Wanna go grab something to eat? I glanced down at my robe, then the apartment. We can eat in my car, you don't have to get dressed. I sighed and nodded, but she then picked up the trash bag. Her car was the perfect love child of messy and clean. There were no crumbs, no trash, her car even smelled like vanilla. But there were a variety of different kinds of pens in her cup holder, 10 pieces of wrapped bubble gum in the ashtray, and her back seat had a huge pile of folders and papers, having been there long enough to have a blanket on half of them. She put gum in her mouth, set her phone wirelessly to the radio, blaring music that sounded like it was inspired by my heartbeat during panic attacks. She whipped to the nearest fast food place, going through the drive-thru painlessly. We shoved our faces for a while before she broke the silence. Kipper was worried about you, she mused, surfacing from her milkshake. The hell with Kipper, what about the body? She flipped her hair, sipping her milkshake, glancing at me in the most annoying way, shrugging. Vetter said everything would be taken care of. I assumed that meant you were going to take care of it, but he sent you home too? What the fuck is going on? Another shrug. I growled at her. Well, I'm glad you don't care. If you don't care, why did you have me look over the body again? She sighed, putting down her milkshake. Em, I love my job. This is my reason for living. This man has nobody but me to figure out what happened, and I'm on house arrest. Listen, Peachy, we can sit here and yell at each other, or we can eat. She gave me an empathetic smile, using a nickname she gave me when she caught me in the bathroom, shoveling peach rings in my mouth while sobbing. She matched my face as I frowned at her. All right, listen. This case is a little bit bigger than you think. Chase knows this. She eyed the neon sign of the restaurant like a cat hunting a bug. He's a softie. He wants this case solved, but not at the expense of his team. I can promise you it's no big conspiracy. She leaned in closer to me, her eyes lighting up. And this is between you and me, but this is hot off the press of the Kipper Chronicles. She lowered her voice, her bright blue sweater glowing in the neon lights, telling me what she and Kipper had discussed right before she came to see me. My eyes widened, and she gave me a toothy grin. If you want to do your best, take some time off, Beachy. Enjoy yourself. Then we will both tackle this on Wednesday, giving it our 100%. Okay? She gently grabbed my hand, pulling off and placing the cherry of her milkshake on it. It's sticky, I complained quietly. Maybe you should get a partner so you stop loving up on dead bodies, though. Shut up. So, today, I will fill out paperwork. I'm going to get as much of this finished as possible, so I don't have much backup when this is all done. Tomorrow, Amelia and I will find out his story and be able to put him to rest. Knowing that Kipper is going to be just as busy as us, though, makes me feel a little bit of bitter happiness. I mean, with an apartment that has 24/7 surveillance, how can there be no trace of no one coming in or out? No one on camera, not even fingerprints? No one going anywhere near that apartment since the owner left? Both a body and a knife in places where it should be impossible to be.